My millionaire boss broke the law and bragged about it, so I destroyed his empire. When the 2008 recession hit Seattle like a freight train, I never imagined I'd end up working for one of the most corrupt businessmen in the Pacific Northwest. But that's exactly what happened. My name's Ryan Collins. For 15 years, I'd been a precision machinist at West Coast Aerospace, crafting components that required accuracy down to 1,000th of an inch. I was damn good at my job too. But when the economy tanked, even being good wasn't enough. The company laid off our entire department. "It's nothing personal," my manager said, avoiding eye contact as he handed me my severance package. "Just business. Just business." The two words that justify all kinds of cruelty in the corporate world. With a mortgage, a wife who'd recently been downsized from her teaching position, and 2 kids, my daughter Emma starting college and my son Jake in high school, I was desperate. Every night, I'd scroll through job listings until my eyes burned, sending out dozens of applications with barely any responses. After 3 months of searching, my old buddy Mike called me out of the blue. "Ryan, there's an opening at North Star Precision where I'm working. They need someone with your skills. The pay's decent, and the owner's loaded. Could be worse, right?" North Star made specialized components for military and aerospace contracts. Their facility was impressive, a renovated warehouse with state-of-the-art CNC machines and a spotless production floor. The kind of place that should have been a machinist's dream. The owner, Richard Sterling, had that self-made millionaire vibe. Expensive suit, firm handshake, and a smile that never quite reached his eyes. He'd built North Star from nothing in the 90s, starting with a single machine in his garage and expanding into what was now a small industrial park he owned outright. My interview lasted all of 5 minutes. "Mike vouches for you, and your resume shows experience," Sterling said, barely glancing at my paperwork. "When can you start?" The first few months weren't bad. The work was challenging, the equipment top-notch. Mike was the floor supervisor, and he ran a tight but fair ship. But I noticed something odd. Whenever Sterling walked through the shop floor, everyone got quiet. Conversations stopped. Eyes focused intently on work. "What's the deal with Sterling?" I asked Mike over lunch one day. Mike glanced around before answering. "He's intense. Brilliant businessman, but has a temper. Just keep your head down, do good work, and you'll be fine." 6 months into my time at North Star, Mike pulled me aside after hours. "I'm leaving," he said quietly. "Got an offer from Boeing. Better pay, better hours, and frankly, better management." I was shocked. "You're the heart of this place, Mike." "What'll happen?" "That's the thing," he sighed. "Sterling wants you to take over as floor supervisor." "Me? I've only been here half a year. You're the most skilled machinist here, and Sterling's noticed. Just be careful, Ryan. This place has issues that run deeper than you know." The promotion came with a modest raise, not great, but enough to help with Emma's tuition payments. My wife Sarah was cautiously optimistic. "It's a step up," she said that night over dinner. "And supervisor experience looks good on a resume when something better comes along." If only it had been that simple. The first week as supervisor, Sterling called me into his office late Friday afternoon. He had a bottle of expensive scotch open on his desk. "Drink," he offered, already pouring 2 glasses. I accepted, not wanting to seem ungrateful. The scotch burned going down. I was more of a beer guy. "You know why North Star succeeds while other shops fail?" Sterling asked, leaning back in his leather chair. "It's not just quality work. It's smart business." He explained that the industrial park was owned by one company, his, while North Star was technically owned by another. The park charges North Star just enough rent that it looks like we're barely breaking even on paper. The IRS sees a struggling manufacturing business, while the real profits flow through the property company. He winked at me. "Perfectly legal, more or less." I nodded uncomfortably, not sure what to say. Why was he telling me this? As the weeks passed, Sterling shared more of his business genius with me. He complained about environmental regulations and the ridiculous costs of proper waste disposal. "You know what I do with the cutting fluid waste?" he asked one day, pointing out his office window toward the wooded area behind the facility. "I've got 10 acres back there. Deep hole, little concrete, problem solved. Saved us $30,000 last year alone." My stomach turned. Cutting fluids contain all kinds of toxic chemicals. If they leached into the groundwater. That night, I told Sarah what Sterling had revealed. "You need to report him," she said immediately, her teacher's sense of right and wrong kicking in. "And lose my job?" In this economy? With Emma's tuition and Jake's braces. Sarah's disappointment was palpable. The Ryan I married wouldn't let someone poison the environment to save his paycheck. Her words stung because they were true, but I also knew our financial reality. Let me think about it, I said. Over the next few years, Sterling revealed more and more of his cost-saving measures. He cut corners on safety equipment. He falsified quality control documents for military contracts. He bribed inspectors to overlook violations. Each time, I told myself I'd report him when the economy improved, when I found another job, when Emma finished college. There was always a reason to wait. Meanwhile, Sterling kept my salary just high enough that I couldn't afford to leave, but low enough that I couldn't save much either. The perfect trap, golden handcuffs that tightened every year. By 2018, I'd been at North Star for 10 years. 10 years of watching Sterling abuse employees, cheat the government, and poison the environment. 10 years of compromising my values a little more each day. The workforce had completely turned over multiple times. No one lasted more than 2 years except me and Sterling's accountant, Claude. The stress was taking its toll: high blood pressure, insomnia, constant anxiety. Sarah had finally found another teaching position, but our finances were still tight. Emma had graduated with student loans we were helping her pay, and Jake was now in his second year at the state university. One Monday morning, I arrived to find Sterling in a rage. One of our key machines had broken down over the weekend, threatening a major delivery deadline. "Fix it," he screamed at me. "I don't care what it costs or who you have to call. That shipment goes out Friday or we lose the contract." I called every repair service in the state. The earliest anyone could come was Wednesday, and even then, they couldn't guarantee a fix by Friday. When I told Sterling, he exploded. "Useless. All of you." He stormed around the shop floor, kicking metal scrap and knocking tools off benches. Then he turned to Jason, our newest machinist, a kid barely out of technical school. "This is your fault." Sterling jabbed his finger in Jason's face. "You were the last one on that machine Friday." I followed all the maintenance procedures, sir," Jason stammered. "Are you calling me a liar?" Sterling grabbed Jason by the collar and shoved him against the wall. Something in me snapped. I rushed over and pushed Sterling away from Jason. "That's enough. The machine failed because you've been skipping manufacturer-recommended maintenance for years to save money. This isn't on Jason." The shop went silent. Sterling's face turned an alarming shade of purple. "My office." "Now," he hissed. In his office, Sterling paced like a caged animal. 10 years I've treated you well, Collins. 10 years. And this is how you repay me? Undermining me in front of the staff? You were assaulting an employee," I said quietly. "I couldn't let that happen. I built this company from nothing," he shouted. "Every person in that shop owes their paycheck to me. If I want to discipline an incompetent worker, that's my right." "No, it's not," I said, standing my ground. "And Jason isn't incompetent. He's one of the best young machinists I've ever seen." Sterling sneered. "Then why don't you both get out? Find somewhere else that will tolerate your insubordination and his incompetence." I looked at Sterling, really looked at him, and saw him clearly for perhaps the first time. This wealthy, powerful man was nothing but a bully and a criminal. "You know what? I quit," I said, surprising myself with how calm I felt. "And if you fire Jason, I'll make sure every skilled machinist in the state knows exactly what kind of boss you are." Sterling's face contorted with rage. "Get out. And don't expect a reference." I walked out of his office, past the silent workers, and straight to Jason. "Come with me," I said. "We're both leaving." Outside in the parking lot, Jason looked terrified. "Mr. Collins, I can't lose this job. My girlfriend's pregnant, and we just signed a lease." I put my hand on his shoulder. "I've got a plan. Do you trust me?" He nodded hesitantly. "Good. First, we're going to file for unemployment, constructive dismissal due to a hostile work environment. Then I'm calling a friend at Seattle Precision who's been trying to recruit me for years. They need skilled machinists, and you qualify." That night, I told Sarah everything: Sterling's crimes, my years of silence, and my plan. "It's about time," she said, hugging me tightly. "I've been waiting for the real Ryan to come back." But I couldn't just walk away. Not after all I'd seen. Sterling needed to be stopped. I remembered an article I'd read about whistleblower protections. The next morning, instead of looking for a job, I started researching how to properly document workplace violations. I called a lawyer who specialized in whistleblower cases. She explained the process and the protections available to me. She also warned me that it wouldn't be easy. These cases can take years, she said. And while you're legally protected from retaliation, that doesn't mean Sterling won't try to make your life difficult. I understood the risks, but I couldn't back down now. I was done being complicit. Over the next 2 weeks, I put together a comprehensive file of everything I'd witnessed at North Star. I had dates, times, and descriptions of environmental violations. I had copies of falsified quality control documents. I had photos of unsafe working conditions. What I didn't have was hard evidence of the tax fraud. For that, I needed help. I reached out to Claude, Sterling's accountant. We'd never been close, but I sensed he was as uncomfortable with Sterling's methods as I was. We met at a coffee shop far from North Star. At first, Claude was hesitant to talk, but once I explained what I was doing, something changed in his demeanor. I've wanted to leave for years, he admitted. But the job market for middle-aged accountants isn't great, and I've got kids in college too. Claude agreed to provide documentation of Sterling's tax schemes, not directly, but by telling me exactly where to look and what to request in my whistleblower filing. With Claude's guidance, my file was complete. Now I needed an exit strategy. I remembered what Mike had told me when he left North Star. Sterling has friends in this industry. If you ever leave, do it smart. I came up with a plan. I told Sterling I needed 2 weeks off to attend an advanced CNC programming certification course in Portland. It would make me more valuable to the company, I explained. Sterling was skeptical but agreed when I offered to pay for the course myself. Just make sure that new certification translates to faster production when you get back, he warned. That 2-week training course gave me the time I needed. I secured a job at Seattle Precision, helped Jason get hired there too, and finalized my whistleblower documentation. On what was supposed to be my last day of training, I submitted my evidence to OSHA, the EPA, and the IRS. Then I sent Sterling a brief email. I will not be returning to North Star. My resignation is effective immediately. I turned off my phone and went home to wait for the storm. The response was swifter than I expected. Within 3 days, OSHA inspectors showed up at North Star for a surprise inspection. A week later, the EPA arrived with ground-penetrating radar equipment to check the wooded area behind the facility. Sterling called me repeatedly, leaving increasingly threatening voicemails. "You ungrateful piece of garbage," he hissed in one message. "You think you can take me down? I'll make sure you never work in this industry again." I saved every message as additional evidence of his character. My new job at Seattle Precision was everything North Star wasn't. Fair pay, reasonable hours, and a boss who valued safety and quality over cutting corners. Jason thrived there too, quickly becoming one of their top performers. 3 months after I quit, the Seattle Times ran a front-page story. Local defense contractor faces multiple federal investigations. The article detailed the allegations against Sterling and North Star, including quotes from anonymous former employees describing the toxic work environment. The investigations moved at different paces. OSHA was first, hitting North Star with $275,000 in fines for safety violations. The company was ordered to implement comprehensive safety improvements under close monitoring. The EPA investigation took longer, but hit harder. Investigators found exactly what I'd reported: buried containers of toxic industrial waste. The chemicals had leached into the soil and were approaching the water table. The cleanup costs were estimated at over $2 million, plus another $500,000 in fines. The IRS moved the slowest, but most thoroughly. They audited both North Star and Sterling's property company, as well as his personal finances, going back 7 years. They found a pattern of fraud that went beyond even what I'd known about. Throughout this process, I received regular updates from the various agencies. My whistleblower status was kept confidential, but Sterling wasn't stupid. He knew I was behind it. He tried to retaliate by spreading rumors about me in the industry, but my new employer stood by me. "We judge people by their work here," my new boss said. "And your work is excellent." 18 months after I quit, the final blow fell. Sterling was indicted on 34 criminal counts, including tax evasion, environmental crimes, fraud, and witness intimidation. The evidence was overwhelming. Rather than face trial, he accepted a plea deal. For years in federal prison, forfeiture of the industrial park property, and restitution of $4.7 million. North Star collapsed. The building and equipment were sold at auction. Some of the employees found positions at other local manufacturers, including for who joined us at Seattle Precision. The day Sterling's sentencing was announced, my new boss called me into her office. "You've done exceptional work here, Ryan," she said. "I'd like to offer you a new position, Director of Operations. We're expanding, and I need someone with your expertise and integrity to help lead the growth." The salary she mentioned was nearly double what Sterling had paid me, with benefits that included profit sharing and a retirement plan. "There's one condition," she added. "I want you to develop a comprehensive ethics and compliance program for the company. Your experience makes you uniquely qualified." I accepted on the spot. That evening, I took Sarah out to celebrate at the restaurant where we'd had our first date 25 years earlier. "I'm proud of you," she said, raising her glass. "You did the right thing, even when it was hard." "I just wish I'd done it sooner," I admitted. "All those years I stayed silent." "You can't change the past," Sarah said, taking my hand. "But you've changed the future. For us, for Jason and his family, for all the people who won't be harmed by Sterling's crimes anymore." A month later, I received an unexpected letter from the U.S. Attorney's Office. As a whistleblower in a successful federal case, I was entitled to a percentage of the recovered funds. In this case, approximately $850,000. Sarah and I were stunned. After taxes, we paid off our mortgage, cleared Emma and Jake's student loans, and set up a college fund for Jason's baby. The rest we invested in a small foundation to support whistleblowers facing financial hardship. 5 years later, Seattle Precision has doubled in size. We're known not just for quality manufacturing, but for ethical business practices. I speak regularly at industry conferences about corporate responsibility and the importance of creating workplaces where employees feel safe reporting concerns. Sterling was released from prison last year. According to local gossip, he's living in Arizona now. His fortune gone, his reputation destroyed. Sometimes I wonder if he ever reflects on how his own arrogance led to his downfall. How his belief that he could brag about his crimes to an employee with no consequences ultimately brought his empire crashing down. As for me, I found peace. Not just because Sterling faced justice, but because I finally faced myself. For 10 years, I compromised my values bit by bit, justifying my silence with excuses about financial necessity. In the end, doing the right thing didn't ruin me. It saved me. If there's one lesson I've learned from all this, it's that the truth may be delayed, but it can't be permanently denied. And when you stand up for what's right, even after years of staying silent, you might discover you're not standing alone. What an absolutely incredible journey Ryan took us through. From being trapped in a toxic workplace for a decade to bringing down an entire corrupt empire. Let's recap the key moments that made this story so powerful. Ryan stayed silent about Sterling's illegal activities for 10 years because he felt financially trapped by those golden handcuffs. He needed to support his family through college tuition payments and a tough economy. But when Sterling physically attacked young Jason, something inside Ryan finally broke free. Instead of just walking away, Ryan became strategic. He meticulously documented every illegal activity, the tax fraud, the environmental crimes, the safety violations, and reported them all to the proper authorities. The result? Sterling lost everything: his company, his fortune, his freedom, and his reputation. This story teaches us some powerful lessons about workplace ethics and personal courage. First, silence is complicity. When we witness wrongdoing and say nothing, we become part of the problem. Even though it took Ryan years to speak up, his story reminds us that one person with courage can make a difference. Second, it's never too late to do the right thing. Yes, Ryan regretted not speaking up sooner, but when he finally did take action, he still created tremendous positive impact. Third, sometimes the hardest choice is the one that ultimately sets you free. By facing his fears and standing up to Sterling, Ryan not only found justice, but discovered his true purpose, helping create ethical workplaces and supporting other whistleblowers. What would you have done in Ryan's position? Would you have reported Sterling sooner? Or would you have stayed silent even longer to protect your family's financial security? Let us know in the comments below. If you've ever experienced a toxic workplace or witnessed unethical behavior on the job, share your story. How did you handle it? What advice would you give to others in similar situations? This story reminds us that the truth may be delayed, but it can't be permanently denied. Even against powerful opponents with seemingly unlimited resources, justice can prevail. If you enjoyed this tale of workplace justice, don't forget to smash that like button and subscribe to Reddit Bit for more incredible true stories of people standing up against corruption and injustice. Hit that notification bell so you never miss an upload. Thanks for watching. And remember, sometimes the greatest acts of courage start with one simple decision to speak up. See you in the next video.